Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Joe Lukacs, who's an expert in mastermind groups for financial advisors. Joe, welcome to the program.
Mike, it's great to be here.
Hey, so I'm so looking forward to talking with you because not only do you focus on serving a specific industry niche, financial advisors, but then you further segment your offerings to them by providing coaching in the form of mastermind groups. And so I think that is so exciting. But before we dive into what all you do, give us a little bit of your background and what your entrepreneurial journey has been like to this point in your career.
Okay, we'll do the 3-minute version for time. Yeah. I've been blessed and lucky that I've specifically coached financial advisors now for 28 years. I started, if you do the math, I started my career when there really wasn't a career. There was no such thing back in the early 90s as a coach.
Yeah.
So I kind of grew up in a very cottage industry without any models. We just kind of went after it and kind of started from scratch. The way I started, to make a very long story short, I come from a long line of entrepreneurs. Now, the key word there is entrepreneurs. Doesn't mean they were successful.
Yeah.
It just means they were entrepreneurs. So, I always had that entrepreneurial gene in my body. In fact, the only W-2 I've ever gotten is really from my own company. I've never had one prior to that. Huh. So I worked for Tony Robbins for a couple of years back in the very early 90s, so let's say 90, 91 to like 93. I lived in New Jersey at the time, and they needed somebody to cover lower Manhattan. And I didn't know any different, so I said, I'll do it. No problem. I have friends in the city. Sounds like exciting, right?
Yeah.
Training from New Jersey every day, right into World Trade. And, I did that for 2 years. And, the reality of that was it was a commission-only gig. And so you only basically got money or got compensated when you sold a training program or a product or a class or something like that. And, there's only so many of those. And when you were done, you're done. The reality, though, was I would be in different branches, every third or fourth week, sort of like a wholesaler would be in essence at the time. And I'd have I would call them back then mostly stockbrokers. I'd have stockbrokers, want to sit down and talk to me. Hey, here are my goals. What do you think? That's what I'm thinking about. Hey, can you help me? I need to understand a little bit more about what this modeling is about, or talk to me a little bit more about these pattern interrupts. So we end up doing 20, 30-minute conversations unpaid.
Yeah.
That was a problem. So they weren't offering coaching at the time because nobody was. So I decided after about 2 years of doing that, and these were long days, 6:30 trains in, 7:00 trains home. It was not a lifestyle that was going to be sustainable if you want to have family and balance and stuff like that. So I resigned, started my business, and my offer was very simple. When I went back out there on that, I'll never forget that Monday morning. I sat down as I went to the branches. Everybody knew me, so I didn't have to make any announcements. This is when you actually can walk into buildings without security.
Yeah.
And I just went to the guys that I knew, and I said, "Here's what I've done. Here's my offer to you. You can have an hour of my time. Give me your top 2 to 3 issues, challenges, and I'm going to help you work on them. And at the end of the hour, I'm going to hand you a blank invoice, and you're going to write down whatever amount you think that was worth to you. Cash or check only, please." Right? I still walked around with a pager back then.
I remember those days.
Yeah, exactly. So that's how I started my career. And what I've learned, and I just immersed myself in. So I would read everything. And what I realized was that I have to practice the craft, right? The only way you get good at something is to do it. You can't read about it.
Yeah.
You can't rehearse it. You got to go out there and do it. You got to go out there and fail. And so I wanted to fail as quickly as possible. So I wanted to get through it, learn, and quite frankly, in retrospect, 28 years later, I think a lot of my initial clients were clients because they were trying to recruit me to join their teams.
Yeah.
Which is fine. But I learned a lot, and I still learn a lot every day. So I think that's really, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, if you're going to go after something, I don't think you can be half committed. I think you really need to be all in on something and embrace failure. I think a lot of guys, even the guys I coach, I think a lot of times advisors get into the, well, I don't want to fail, so I'm going to overthink things or overlearn things, and they don't do anything. And this is still this is still a doing business, no matter what.
It's about iterating and learning and reiterating and tweaking and polishing, and just, like you mentioned, Tony Robbins. I've mentioned this many times in interviews. His concept on CANI, constant and never-ending improvement, and it's not check the box. I did this, and yay! Now I'm gonna do it the same way every year, or else you'd be like Blockbuster. Well, Blockbuster ignored what was coming in the near future, and now look where Netflix is. So I think that's really huge. And when you're working with advisors, how do you get, I know you do different styles of coaching, but when you're talking to advisors that you're saying, hey, my coaching really focuses on this mastermind concept, I'm sure you have people that really have a variety of views of what a mastermind really is.
It's interesting because, if you go back to the concept, the principle of mastermind, right, from Napoleon Hill, it's really about collaboration and associations. So it's fascinating because you could be at a major firm in a large branch with 25 or 50 other advisors and literally still feel like you're on the island by yourself.
Yep.
Because think about this, your colleagues are your competitors.
100%.
They are. Right? Yeah. So, there tends to be not a lot of sharing. So what I found, and, this really 100% stems from just the work I've done in my career. I still do to this day. I used to run like conferences just for my clients. It wasn't like industry conferences. I'd bring my clients together twice a year. Once a year, we do business planning. And then I would do like a summer retreat. And I'd have kind of the same core group of people always showing up. And this was probably 2007, 2006, 2008, somewhere in that ballpark. And a couple of them said to me, hey, we should really put a standing mastermind group together. And I said, it's a great idea. I have no time right now for that. So it goes in the back burner and everybody shows up. So I finally changed the way I do business, my business model. And you're right, Mike. You always have to be evolving. You always have to be elevating, right? You always have to be innovative. I think those are one of the three traits all entrepreneurs need. So I said, I'm going to clear my calendar. I'm going to launch this thing. So I launched my first group probably 12, 13 years ago now, and it was fascinating because fast forward to this day, we launched it with 12. I think 9 of the 12 are still in the group.
Wow.
Which that group has now grown to 20.
Yeah.
So we have, and so what I have found in building, I've built 4 groups. What I've found is that there are advisors out there that are absolutely looking for this depth of association, authentic, real, where people speak the truth. We just got done with two groups in Winter Park, Florida, a couple weeks ago. One of our newest members, which is fascinating, he was a personal client of mine, a new personal client of mine, got referred to him, and building a group. So just to give you a little flavor on this, it's like building a sports team. You got to have enough commonality that everybody gets along, but you got to have enough difference that nobody's bored. You can't see mirror images of yourself in the room. Yeah. It's not going to do any good, right? So I we'll call his name. First name is Josh. So we bring Josh in the group, and so he's got this in his mind, a really great idea of doing this podcast for nonprofits and stuff like that, and he's going to devote all this energy into it. But subsequently, his core business is in life sciences. He has a really good niche in life sciences, working with those, again, scientists and mid and upper level, C-suite people in the space. And so he got done with everything, and everybody gets like 30 minutes in front of the room, and there was like 18 other people there. And I always pause. So I took feedback. Everybody said it was don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. And this is a new guy. Yeah. And he's being quote unquote, we're crushing his dream in real time, right? Now, fast forward, I speak to him, and he goes, you know what, that was tough medicine, but they're right.
Yeah.
And I put the project aside, and I'm so grateful. Like I got so much value because I would have went down a rabbit hole with this thing. Right?
That would have been a shiny object.
Yeah, exactly right. And so if you've got the right players in the seat on the team, It's about speaking the truth, being authentic, but in a very caring manner. So one of the things that I look at is I do need egos. And this industry is loaded with them, so that's usually not a problem. But I need to have it in a manner that's still collaborative.
Yes.
Right. So we use a term in our space called faucets and sponges. I need you to be a faucet, which is give information, give feedback, give value. I need you to be a sponge. I want you to soak up value, right, and information. But I need both. You can't just you just can't be a sponge. And there are some guys that and we learn how to weed them out pretty quickly, who really are. They think it's training. Oh, I'm gonna join a mastermind. I'm gonna get trained. I'm like, no. This is not training. Like, you're gonna be a teacher, and if you don't think you can teach, or you're not in a position where you feel comfortable in teaching, then you're not ready to do this. You're just not, right? So it's really important.
I think that it is one of the things that you just mentioned there that just brings it to life is, have you ever been in a conversation, and maybe someone listening to this can kind of go, this is, I've been there dozens of times, but someone says something, and let's say it's a business conversation, and it's like, oh yeah, that's a great point. It reminds me one time when I was, and then that makes you think of yet another deeper, even more point that brings it the into more clarity. And I think that back and forth is so much better than just, you may as well just listen to a presentation on audio and call it good. The reason you're going to a collaborative give and take mastermind is to learn from and contribute to the group. And somebody is going to say something that makes you think of something you never would have thought of before you walked into the room, but that might be that nugget that someone walks away with that goes, this was worth the price of the entire year in that one comment.
Yep. Yeah. And what's really fascinating, and I've watched this now for, throughout all the groups, is that I'll somebody sitting there, because at the end of the day, we always ask what was the most valuable thing you got out of the day. And half the participants were like, well, I came with my topic or issue or challenge or opportunity. But Bill there, when he brought up his subject, that opened my eyes. Like, that was an epiphany. Like, so it's not even like, hey, I'm going to work on my stuff.
Yeah.
It's somebody else brings something totally that wasn't even on your radar. Just wasn't. And they bring the topic up, and you're like, oh my gosh, that was so powerful. I got so much out of that. And it wasn't even yours.
Yes.
Right? So that's the power of, if you put the right people in the right seats and the right dynamic. It's one of the most powerful. My personal belief, and of course it's just personal belief, is I think every advisor needs to be in some sort of group, whether it's something professional like I do, or get 3 or 4 or 5 colleagues and go out to lunch once a month, or get just some like-minded people in different industries and their professions. But with COVID and the internet and everything else, I think at some levels we're more collaborative with technology. But I think we're becoming less collaborative with the person.
Yep.
And I think there's still, and I run a virtual group because I've got clients that just cannot travel because of family scenarios, commitments, things like that, and that's fine. But I still, twice a year, they're still invited to business planning, which we do here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, in November, and we do our training conference every May. This year we're going to be in Vegas. So even if they're virtual, they still have the opportunity, if they choose to come, be be present in the same room, same time, and really build relationships. Our foundational principle in all these groups is going to sound kind of odd, but it's the one I chose, that the relationships that are built in these groups will transcend Joe Lucas. So in other words, if I were to die, retire, whatever, that you are building lifelong positive relationships with like-minded people / professionals.
Yeah, I love it. It's just amazing. And when an advisor kind of gets that and internalizes that, the gist of what you're providing them in your coaching / mastermind, that's a special breed of person, professional advisor, because they are not just going, oh, I know my business, check. I do some marketing this way, that way, the other way, check. They are elevating their personal and professional brand by really coming and interacting with this group. So what do you find in your experience currently, as well as over the last 20 plus years? What separates these high achieving advisors from the ones that just remain middle of the pack?
Great question. The biggest, it's I always say I fight a battle with two enemies in my space: ego and arrogance.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of advisors out there, and gender is irrelevant, doesn't matter. Who just they're just not self-aware. They don't know what they don't know. They don't see what they don't want to see, and so they get into the I'm good or I'm good enough. And look, that's totally cool. And we all know in this industry, being an advisor, and I've said this for 25 plus years now, that show me another profession where you can have a highly dysfunctional human being make six figures, right? Think about that. So to me, I look for what I call the 5%ers. Now, and 5%ers not, by the way, top five. Income's not relevant, although again, we need some level of success. I'm looking for the person. Are they open-minded? Are they collaborative? Are they looking to elevate? Are they looking to change? Are they willing to get uncomfortable? Are they willing to speak the truth? And are they willing to hear the truth? Right? That's what I need. And they exist. But I always say, put 100 advisors in a room. There's going to be maybe 5 of them are going to get this.
It's not
okay.
The Pareto principle anymore. It's not the 80-20. It's like the 95.
For me, it's the 5-95.
Yeah. Right.
Because of what we do. Yeah. Because ultimately, like in my personal work, my average engagement is 13 and a half years. So I can take on a personal client. They're with me for a decade plus.
Yeah.
Right. And some of it with me, I still have client 3 and 5 with me, 28 years. Wow. Think about that, right? So I'm highly relational, and I'm definitely not transactional. So when somebody wants a chair in one of my groups, we vet them. It's not about can you stroke a check or anything like that. You have to go through this interview process with me, this onboarding process, and if I don't feel like it's a good fit or the timing's not right in that situation, hey, this is just timing's not right. It's just not. Or, you need training. You're not ready to, you think I know you want to be here, but the reality is you're going to get a lot out of this, but you're not going to bring it because you don't know enough yet. You're not that experienced yet. And a lot of times, and there's some really great people, but I know that they're going to be the sponge. They're not ready to be the faucet. And I can't have that in these groups. I got to have both.
Yeah, so it really is a qualification, but it's that special breed of person that once they are thinking the right way and are that sponge and the faucet at the same time, that they're going to go out and implement. Because the worst thing in the world, I would suspect, would be to have someone leave one of your engagements, groups, masterminds, retreats, and not implement what they just experienced through there, because still you could be the faucet of the sponge and then not get it into action in your business.
Well, yeah. So we kind of that was one of the blind spots we had for the first couple of years, and then we thought about it. We said, how do we create accountability, right? Which is what we're talking about here. And so what we do now at the end of every meeting is there's our commitment. We call it our commitment contract, which everybody writes what they're committed to between the meetings, and they then determine if they don't do it, what's the fine. So like if somebody doesn't, so if they say, hey, I'm going to go do this, I'm going to do a seminar. And we had this happen in Winter Park, as a matter of fact. Hey, I'm going to do a seminar. And this was we did Del Mar, California last September. So now we're in March, basically. So the guy didn't do the seminar. Things got in the way, whatever. And I read it. I said, hey, Mike, you're supposed to do a seminar. Did you do it? No. Okay, let me finish reading. Oh, you're going to buy each member a Waterman pen. Okay, so let us know how you want to. I can have my team facilitate that. I'll send you the bill. Tell me how you want to handle it, right? But we have people that they make a commitment, and trust me, that those groups, they're going to hold you to that if you owe them. That we're very unforgiving with that. But and this is done in jest and fun, and and for the first couple of years it was like cocktails, I'll buy everybody a drink, I was like, you know what?
There wasn't enough pain in that.
Well, that's exactly right. You're going to be there with. So and look, it's money. Who cares about that, right? So we just got done in Winter Park, and like I said, we're going to Denver end of September for our next window. And so I said, look, we're going to go the opposite way. If you don't, so for all of you who wrote down, we're going to buy a drink, we're going to go the other way. If you don't get this done, you're not going to drink in Denver. You're not going to have any cocktails in Denver. You're going to sit and drink water at dinner and watch everybody else have a good time.
Yep.
So, and then people they really freaked out. Some people really freaked out over that. Like, oh my gosh, right? So we kind of do it in a fun way, but we're serious about it too. And I think
it's that accountability. It's that sticking to your commitment.
Exactly. And now they know it. So like, hey, and I say, don't pick a layup that you know you're going to do, so that way you're like, because I'll know if it's too. And the beauty of it, Mike, too, and this is kind of the other piece. Like I've got, my initial group, the core group that's been around for 12 years now. A lot of them are friends. Like they vacation together. They vacation with their families together.
Neat.
That group has really become what all the groups are in the process of becoming. This tight-bound band of brothers and sisters that whether Joe Lucas walks the earth or not, that group will continue on in some form or fashion. And that's what's exciting to me.
That's huge. Hey, so let's kind of land the plane and wrap up with this. I know you've seen many things over your career. What are you seeing these days with the financial profession? And where I'm thinking of that is, you've got AUM, you've got fee only, you've got, and then you got some that go, we do it all, and some that say we only do. Where's the profession headed, and especially layering in this virtualness now where people feel like, you know what, I'm good with just going virtual. Does that impede where the profession can be heading?
Great question. So I'm very clear on this, which, may make me a little controversial here and there. I really believe that, that the space it's already morphing where it's going to be more financial planning, coaching, and consulting. So it'll be more retainer-based planning. I still think we'll have AUM there, so I'm not going to say that disappears. We're still going to have our products that have to be done and stuff like that. But if I look at 10 years from now, what the dominant model is going to be, it's going to be ongoing, either call it subscription or retainer-based financial planning, coaching, consulting fees, getting paid via AUM, and then also whatever has to be done on the protection/insurance side will facilitate that. So that three-headed monster economically is where we're going. And it's interesting because I've got clients that have adopted that model. And especially if you're inside a niche, you can take that niche national, right? So the virtualization, I talked about this, and not that it matters, but we can go back and look at stuff I did 2006, 2007. I talked about the virtualization, like, hey, we called the series iAdvisor for Innovative Advisor, and was creating a virtual practice model. I never thought we'd have a pandemic to really test it, right? But if you think about it, the silver lining, and there's not many, but one of the silver linings through this pandemic has been our industry had to have a crash course in virtualization, virtual practice models, and everything else. And guess what? It was successful. Think about this. Through a pandemic, at least my clients, most of them had record years. Most of them brought in the most amount of money they ever brought in, 2001, 2020, 2021. Their incomes are up. They're working from home or remotely. And now they realize what's possible. And I think the industry, and I'm really speaking more about the larger firms, the ones that have branches, I think they're going to have a heck of a time convincing a good chunk of their advisors to come back to the office. And let's get back to the way it used to be pre-COVID. I think that horse has left the barn, quite frankly.
I agree, and I want to kind of dive in just to touch on one of the elements you just mentioned with the, quote unquote coaching, because you're a coach, but an advisor. Many times I'm talking with financial services professionals on interviews like this, and I hear them talking, and I make a comment. I'm like, you know what? It's almost like you're a life coach. and it really is the case. And it's just they're not putting the term life coach after it. But if you're working with a family going, what do you envision your retirement looking like? Okay, well, you want to do this, go here, do this. Well, then we need to now prepare financially. But in reality, doesn't that really go hand in glove with goal setting and go in with, how to plan for your future and all of those things? And if that's the case, well, then we want to make sure that your fitness level is to the point where you can do those traveling things in whatever age group. So I really like that aspect that you put in there, and that kind of wheel is you're really having a service providing value to your clients that transcends beyond just the numbers.
Mm-hmm. I think that's, I call it the first P, right? There's people, portfolio, and plan. And I think a lot of advisors fall in love with the second two, their planning process and their portfolio, their asset management process. At the end of the day, you better fall in love with your clients. You better fall in love with your people, because ultimately, this business is relational. And I think there's still a chunk of this industry, and I think that chunk will eventually retire and kind of move on. But, that still kind of operate what I call a transactional mindset as we evolve into more of a relational model. I mean, the coaching model is all relational. It's all people-oriented. And there's a lot of advisors, because I've talked to them, that is not their jam. They got into this business because I like the stock market, or I watched Charlie Sheen on Wall Street back in 1987, whatever it was, right? And so they got in for that reason. And unfortunately, the industry is morphing, the profession is morphing, evolving into, it's going to look more like what you and I do, Mike. It's going to look more like us than it did back in 1987. That's reality.
Yeah, well, and it's I know you've heard this many times before, but the old quote from Wayne Gretzky: "You got to skate where the puck is heading." Well, if the industry is heading this way, then maybe some advisors that are listening to this should be going, what can I be doing? Maybe not to 90-degree pivot or, dramatic changes today, but what can I be doing to work toward that in my practice to be able to serve my clients moving forward in this realm? It might be small changes and tweaks and adjustments that you don't need to, stop something you're doing completely, but I think these are some really pivotal things that are wonderful to be kind of peeking over the fence at.
I agree, and the last thing we want to land the plane. One of the things I think is critically important is, we talk about businesses and practices and so on and so forth. In our game, the advisor game, the advisor's practice is a mirror image of them, their psychology, their mindset. So, like you said, what changes? What could they do? I think the one thing is be open to change, be open to elevation, be open to adaptation. Do not have a fixed mindset, because that will really, really, I'm not going to say make you obsolete. It's going to get you very frustrated each and every year as the industry continues to evolve, and you're just stuck. It's not a place you want to be.
Yes. 100%. Well, Joe, it's really great chatting with you here. And if someone listening to this going, maybe I need to elevate my game and check out that Mastermind group, what's the best way they could reach out, consume some of your content, and get to know you a little bit more?
Probably my global website, which is Coach Joe, so CoachJoe.guru, GURU.
Awesome. Well, I'll make sure that is hot link in the show notes as well. But thank you so much for coming on. It's a real pleasure talking with you.
Thank you for having me, Mike. I enjoyed it.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.